It was a sunny afternoon when Max, a loyal dog with a golden coat and kind eyes, sat by the gate of his home, tail wagging excitedly. The familiar scent of his owner, Sarah, filled the air as she prepared to leave for the day. Max had been with Sarah for nearly 6 years, through good days and bad, always by her side, offering unconditional love and companionship. He had never known a day without her. Sarah, a young woman who worked as a teacher, had always made time for Max. They shared a bond that was inseparable, a bond that only a dog and its owner could understand. Every morning, Max would wait eagerly by the door, and every evening, Sarah would return, her tired eyes brightening up at the sight of him. It was a routine that both of them cherished. Max would greet her with wagging tails, and Sarah would smile, happy to see her best friend waiting for her. But today, something felt different. Sarah was in a hurry. She had packed her bag, locked the door, and was ready to leave. She grabbed her keys from the table and walked towards the car, the engine already purring in the driveway. Max, sensing the change, trotted over to the gate, his eyes filled with curiosity. He stood there, watching Sarah with an expression that seemed to ask, "Where are we going today?" Sarah glanced back at him and smiled softly. "I'll be back soon, Max," she said, but the words were distant, almost hurried, as she slid into the driver's seat of the car. Max's tail wagged slightly, but his heart was heavy with confusion. His owner never left without giving him a proper goodbye. Yet today, it felt as if there was no time for that. As the engine roared to life, Max's ears perked up. He saw the car begin to move, slowly at first, and then accelerate. Without a second thought, Max raced to the edge of the driveway, watching as Sarah's car pulled away. His body was filled with an uncontrollable urge to follow her. His paws hit the ground faster as he ran after the car, barking in excitement, thinking Sarah was simply going for a ride. The car, however, continued to speed down the road, leaving Max far behind. But Max didn't understand. He couldn't comprehend why Sarah was leaving him behind. She had never done that before. He pushed himself harder, his paws scraping the concrete, his breathing growing heavier with every step. The wind rushed past his fur as he sprinted, heart pounding in his chest. He was determined to catch up, determined to stay close to the person he loved more than anything in the world. With every passing second, the gap between Max and the car widened. The road stretched ahead, but Sarah's car was moving faster than Max could keep up. His muscles ached, and his breath came in sharp gasps. But Max wasn't ready to stop. He couldn't understand why she wasn't waiting for him. He just wanted to be by her side, as he always had been. But despite his efforts, the car continued to disappear down the road, and the gap between them only grew larger. Max's tail, which had once wagged with excitement, now hung low, his energy starting to drain. But still, he pushed on, his paws pounding against the pavement, his eyes fixed on the car ahead. He was desperate to stay with her, to show her that he would never leave her side, no matter what. The sun shone brightly overhead, casting long shadows on the road as Max continued to chase after the car. But with every passing minute, the hope in his heart began to fade. He couldn't keep up anymore. His body, exhausted from the effort, slowed to a crawl. His paws stumbled, and his heart seemed to beat slower with each passing moment. Sarah, oblivious to the pain and suffering Max was enduring behind her, continued driving, unaware of the dog chasing after her. She had no idea of the heartache she was causing. And in those final moments, as Max's energy drained away, his paws finally gave out beneath him. He collapsed onto the side of the road, looking one last time at the car disappearing into the distance. It was then that Max realized the truth. He was alone, abandoned. His heart sank as he lay there on the side of the road, the warmth of the sun offering no comfort. He had run as fast as he could, but in the end, it wasn't enough. Sarah had left him behind, and no matter how hard he had tried, he couldn't follow her. The last goodbye had come too soon, and Max's world would never be the same again. As the car disappeared from view, Max closed his eyes, his spirit heavy with sadness. He lay there, hoping, praying that somehow he would be found, and that someone would understand the pain of a loyal dog left behind. Max had never been so exhausted in his life. His paws were sore, and his body felt like it was made of lead. Every step he took was harder than the last, but he refused to stop. He couldn't stop. The thought of being left behind, of being alone without Sarah, was something he couldn't bear. He had to reach her. He had to keep running. The road stretched endlessly ahead of him, a never-ending strip of blacktop with no sign of the car. His tail had stopped wagging, his usual enthusiasm replaced by desperation. His chest rose and fell in quick, shallow breaths, his energy drained after the relentless chase. The once quiet road now seemed to mock him, stretching farther than he could ever reach. The only sound was the pounding of his own heart and the rhythmic tap of his paws against the asphalt. Max was a dog with unwavering loyalty. He had followed Sarah through thick and thin. Whether it was a walk in the park or a quiet evening at home, he was always by her side, always happy to be near her. But now his world felt different. With each passing minute, the world seemed to grow colder, and the distance between him and Sarah became more and more overwhelming. He could still see the faint silhouette of the car in the distance, but it was getting smaller and smaller, as though Sarah was fading away from him. The sky above was cloudless, the sun beating down on him relentlessly, making him feel even more drained. His coat, once a rich golden color, now looked dirty and matted. His muscles ached, his legs trembling with every step. He had never felt so weak, but the thought of Sarah's smile, her soft voice calling his name, kept him going. He couldn't give up. Not now. Not when she needed him. But as Max pushed forward, something went terribly wrong. His vision blurred from exhaustion, his legs wobbled beneath him, and his senses became distorted. He wasn't sure what had happened, but before he could react, he felt an overwhelming force slam into his side. The sound was deafening. Tires screeching, metal twisting, and the world spinning around him. He couldn't comprehend what had just occurred, his mind reeling from the shock. Max collapsed onto the road, his body crumpling like a rag doll. Pain exploded in his side, sharp and unrelenting. He let out a pained whimper, but the sound was lost in the vast emptiness of the road. His vision was blurry, and he could barely keep his eyes open. His body screamed in pain, but there was no one there to help him, no one to comfort him. He was alone. As he lay there, the world around him seemed to slow down. The car that had hit him screeched to a halt further down the road, but the driver did not stop. The tires spun, leaving behind a trail of rubber on the asphalt as the vehicle sped off into the distance. Max's heart sank as he realized what had just happened. He had been hit, and no one had even bothered to stop. The once bustling road was now eerily silent, save for the sound of Max's shallow breaths. He could feel the weight of his body pressing against the rough pavement, the concrete scraping at his skin. He was disoriented, his mind foggy, and the pain in his side throbbed with each heartbeat. He tried to move, to stand, but his body wouldn't respond. His legs felt like they were made of lead, and the effort to lift his body was too much. He collapsed back onto the ground, unable to muster the strength to get up. Max's eyes flickered around, searching for something, anything, that could offer him hope. But all he saw was the same empty road, stretching out before him, devoid of life. The once busy highway was now abandoned, and Max was left alone, injured and helpless. The pain in his side grew worse with every passing second, his body growing weaker. He let out another soft whimper, but there was no one to hear him. The sun continued to shine down on him, its warmth doing little to comfort the dog that lay on the cold, unforgiving road. He tried to lift his head, but it felt too heavy. His body refused to cooperate, and all he could do was lie there, helpless and abandoned. Max's eyes closed for a moment, his exhaustion catching up with him. He had been chasing after Sarah, thinking that if he could just reach her, everything would be okay. But now he was alone, broken and in pain. The car had struck him, and there was no one to help him. The loneliness was suffocating, and with every passing second, it became harder and harder to hold on. The road was still empty, the world indifferent to his suffering. Max's once bright eyes now looked dull, his spirit beginning to fade. He had chased after his owner with all the love and loyalty in his heart, but now, in his greatest time of need, he was left alone, abandoned and forgotten. The tragic accident was the end of the journey he had hoped would never come. Max lay on the side of the road, his body limp and aching. The once vibrant, energetic dog had become a shadow of himself. He could feel the warm sun on his back, but it did little to comfort him. His fur, once soft and golden, was now matted with dirt and blood from the accident. His side throbbed with an unrelenting pain, and every breath he took seemed harder than the last. The world around him was quiet, eerily so. There was no sound of passing cars, no footsteps coming to his aid. There was only silence. The accident had taken all the energy out of him, and now, as he lay on the cold, unforgiving pavement, he felt a deep sense of abandonment. His owner, Sarah, was nowhere in sight. He had been chasing her car, thinking that if he could just catch up, everything would be okay. But now his eyes scanned the empty road, and he realized the painful truth: she was gone. The car had left him behind. She had left him behind. Max let out a soft whimper, his body trembling with the effort to move. He tried to lift his head, but the pain in his side was too much. He collapsed back onto the pavement, feeling as though all the life had drained from him. His paws were scraped and bruised from the long run, his muscles sore and tired. His mind was foggy, his thoughts jumbled, and he couldn't quite understand why this was happening. Why had Sarah left him? What had he done wrong? He thought back to their life together, to the days when they would take long walks in the park, playing fetch and running through the grass. Sarah had always been there for him, always loving and kind. They shared a bond that was unspoken but strong. Max had always been her loyal companion. But now, as he lay on the side of the road, that bond felt like a distant memory. It hurt to think that someone he had trusted so completely could leave him so easily. The heat of the sun began to feel oppressive. Max's throat was dry, his mouth parched from the exertion of running and from the shock of the accident. His eyes, which had once shone with joy and excitement, now looked dull and lifeless. His gaze turned back to the road ahead, searching for any sign of life, but all he saw was the endless stretch of asphalt. No one was coming. No one was there to help him. As the hours passed, Max's hope began to fade. The pain in his side was unbearable, and the world around him grew darker. The sun, once high in the sky, was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the road. Max could feel the chill of the evening air creeping in, but it was the coldness inside his heart that hurt the most. He was alone, and there was no one to comfort him. The road, which had once seemed like a place full of possibility, now felt like a vast, empty desert. Max's body shivered not from the cold, but from the overwhelming feeling of abandonment. His mind kept returning to the moment when Sarah had driven away, when he had chased her car, thinking it was just another adventure. But now it was clear that it wasn't an adventure. It was a cruel twist of fate, one that had left him broken and alone. Max's body was weak, and his energy was almost gone. He had spent so much of his life caring for Sarah, protecting her, and now, in his greatest time of need, there was no one to protect him. He closed his eyes, hoping to escape the pain, but the darkness that surrounded him was filled with the heavy weight of loneliness. His mind drifted to the memory of Sarah's voice, her gentle words, and the love she had always shown him. But even those memories couldn't comfort him now. They only reminded him of what he had lost. With every passing minute, Max felt the warmth of life slipping away. He had once been so full of energy and love, But now he was just a dog lying on the side of the road, waiting for something that might never come. The thought that Sarah would never return to find him haunted his every thought. How could she have just left him behind? How could she not have known that he would follow her anywhere, no matter the cost? Max's breathing grew slower, his movements sluggish. The road remained empty, the silence around him deafening. His body grew colder, and the pain in his side became a constant, unyielding presence. He longed for the sound of footsteps, for someone to come to his rescue. But there was no one, just the endless stretch of the road, and the memory of a life that now felt so far away. As the sky grew darker, Max's eyes fluttered open one last time. He tried to call out, but his voice was weak, barely a whisper. The road remained quiet, still. The last thing he remembered was the sound of the wind rustling through the trees, and the faint memory of Sarah's gentle touch. But now, that was all he had left, memories of a life that had been stolen from him, leaving him with nothing but the painful reality of being abandoned and alone. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in a soft golden glow, Max's heart beat slower and slower. His once bright eyes had grown dim, and the pain in his side was almost too much to bear. His body had grown weaker with each passing minute, each breath becoming more labored than the last. His once proud golden coat now seemed heavy with dirt and despair. The road, which had once been a place of freedom and adventure, now felt like the final destination for this loyal dog, abandoned and forgotten. The harsh reality of his situation weighed heavily on his tired soul, and as darkness began to settle in, Max thought that perhaps his journey had come to an end. Just when the last glimmer of hope seemed to have evaporated, a rustling sound caught his attention. Max's ears perked up, but he barely had the strength to lift his head. It was a sound. Footsteps. Faint at first, but growing louder with each passing second. Max's heart skipped a beat, and though his body was exhausted, his instincts kicked in. Someone was coming. Someone was coming to help. Through his blurry vision, Max saw a figure approaching, walking down the road in the fading light. The stranger was a man, tall and kind-looking, wearing a worn jacket and carrying a backpack. Max's hope flared for a brief moment, though he couldn't summon the strength to move. His tail, once wagging excitedly at the sight of anyone, now remained still, but his heart filled with a renewed sense of hope. Could this be the person who would finally rescue him from his pain? The man noticed Max almost immediately, his steps faltering as he looked down at the injured dog, lying helplessly on the side of the road. His eyes softened with concern as he knelt beside Max, his hands gently touching the dog's coat. "Hey there, little one," he whispered, his voice soothing and kind. "What happened to you?" Max could barely respond, his body too weak to move or bark, but he felt a warmth spread through him as the man's hand rested on his head. There was a gentleness in the way the man spoke to him, a sense of kindness that Max hadn't experienced since Sarah's touch. The man continued to speak softly, as if trying to reassure Max that everything would be okay. Max's eyes fluttered as he looked up at the stranger, his mind struggling to process the kindness that was being shown to him. For so long, he had felt nothing but the coldness of abandonment and the pain of his injury. But now, with the man by his side, there was a flicker of hope. The darkness around him didn't seem quite so oppressive anymore. He wasn't alone. Someone cared. The man carefully lifted Max into his arms, cradling him like a fragile treasure. Max's body ached, but the warmth of the man's embrace was comforting. The stranger didn't rush, taking his time to gently place Max into the back of a small, beat-up car. The interior smelled of leather and fresh air, a stark contrast to the dust and pain Max had been surrounded by for hours. As the car started, Max felt the gentle hum of the engine beneath him, and though he was exhausted, a part of him felt at ease. The man drove slowly, taking the winding road toward what Max could only hope was safety. The car's headlights illuminated the path ahead, casting long shadows in the darkness. Max's eyes began to close, his mind slowly drifting off to sleep. the rhythmic sound of the engine lulling him into a peaceful, dreamless rest. When Max woke up again, he was no longer lying on the side of the road. He was in a small room, soft blankets wrapped around him, and the scent of fresh food and clean air filled his nose. The man was still there, sitting by his side, watching him with a gentle smile. "You're safe now," he said softly, his voice a balm to Max's weary soul. Max's head throbbed as he lifted it from the pillow, looking around the room. It was a small, cozy space, nothing fancy, but warm and welcoming. There were no harsh lights, no cold, empty road. Instead, there was a sense of peace that filled the room, a place where Max could rest and heal. The man continued to stay by his side, feeding him small bits of food and offering him water. In the days that followed, Max slowly regained his strength. His injuries healed, and his fur began to shine again, no longer dulled by the dirt and despair of the road. The man, whose name was Jack, took care of him every step of the way. He never once rushed or seemed impatient, instead offering Max the kind of care and kindness the dog had never experienced from anyone else. Jack took Max to the vet, ensuring that his injuries were properly treated and that he was comfortable during the healing process. Max's heart began to fill with gratitude. He had been abandoned, left to suffer alone, but in the darkest moment of his life, a stranger had shown him kindness and compassion. He wasn't alone anymore. He had found a new family, and with Jack by his side, Max knew that no matter what had happened in the past, his future was full of love and care. The road that had once seemed endless and cold was now behind him. In the arms of a stranger who had become his savior, Max found hope again. And though he would never forget the pain of the past, he now had the chance to live the life he had always deserved, surrounded by love, kindness, and the warmth of a new home.